Alright, here's the old man again. We are going to continue in the American Covenant, The Untold Story by Marshall Foster. We have began reading chapter 1. So, alright, the first part is titled, Why is American Christian History Relevant Today? A knowledge of America's Christian history makes it possible to discern fundamental answers to current problems in our nation. Many politically active Christians and media personalities today are addressing the issues of the day, but most unfortunately have little knowledge of our history. Because of this lack of knowledge, many leaders and people become easy prey for well-trained humanist journalists who know all of the cliches about witch hunts, bigoted Puritans, and the blessings of pluralism. When Christian leaders call for a return to a God-centered America, the secularist undermines the message by equating it with the ambitions of extremists and demagogues. If Christians do not know their true history, a false sense of guilt will set in, and they will be on the defensive concerning their God and their country. Once in a defensive reactionary position, the Christian community is one of the easiest groups in America to immobilize because Christians who know the Bible know they cannot and should not force their beliefs on others. They do not want a church-run society, and if they think this is the only option other than a secular do-your-own-thing state, they will complacently opt for the latter. The beauty of America's heritage is that our founders provide a third alternative. A nation with true liberty and justice for all, including both the believer and the unbeliever. Here are some specific examples of how the knowledge of America's Christian history clarifies issues and answers current dilemmas. What is the separation of church and state? For decades, the debate over the meaning of the separation of church and state has burned hot in the courts and legislative halls of our land. The expression separation of church and state has been used as a catch-all phrase to attempt to eliminate religious influence upon anything involving the state or civil affairs. The history of the First Amendment to the Constitution gives us quite a different perspective. Our founders came from European lands ruled by monarchs who used official state churches to control the people. They had enough of the supposed divine right of kings, so according to James Madison, the First Amendment was drawn up because the people feared one sect might obtain a preeminence or two combined together and establish a religion to which they would compel others to conform. The First Amendment was intended to shield the churches from the encroachment of the federal government, specifically the Congress. But the framers of the Bill of Rights never intended the church, speaking of the Christians and their various denominations, should have no influence in the state or that religion should be separated from our national life by the impregnable wall of separation. Our founding fathers presupposed Christianity as the moral foundation of the governmental action. George Washington said, "True religion offers the government its surest support." Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, writing in the early days of the Republic, said of the period when the First Amendment was adopted, an attempt to level all religions and make it a matter of state policy to hold all in utter indifference would have created universal disapprobation, which means strong disapproval, if not universal indignation. He explained further that the real object of the First Amendment was to prevent any national, big word here, at least, I can't even pronounce this word here, I'm just going to spell it out for you. ECCLESTICAL, church establishment, which should give to hierarchy the inclusive patronage of the national government. In 1849, Robert C. Winthrop expressed a common understanding of the constitutional period well when he said, "It may do for other countries and other governments to talk about the state-supported religion. Here, under our own free institution, it is religion which must support the state." In fact, the term separation of church and state is not in the First Amendment or indeed anywhere in the Constitution. It appears in a personal letter Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1802, replying to one from a group of Baptists and Congressionalists in Danbury, Connecticut, questioning his religious position. Jefferson was neither a member of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, nor the first Congress under the Constitution which passed the Bill of Rights. Yet the Supreme Court has consistently relied on this personal statement by a man who had nothing to do with writing the Bill of Rights to uphold their rulings that public schools should not hold devotional exercises or Bible readings. Let me back up. I got interrupted here. Yet the Supreme Court has consistently relied on this personal statement by a man who had nothing to do with writing the Bill of Rights to uphold their rulings that public schools may not hold devotional exercises or Bible readings, that the Ten Commandments may not be posted on the walls of classrooms or any other anti-religious decisions. Let us remember that the First Amendment actually says, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." John W. Whitehead, a respected constitutional lawyer and author, gives the following excellent paraphrase of the amendment into modern English. "The federal government shall make no law having anything to do with supporting a national denominational church or prohibiting the free exercise of religion." When we examine the evidence from history, it becomes clear that the separation of church and state is a non-constitutional phrase now used as a battle cry by those who would frighten godly Americans away from the involvement in civil affairs. Education in light of history. No issue looms larger in the minds of American parents than the failure of the American education system. We can best understand this failure and its remedy within the framework of Americans' Christian history, focusing on the long-term reasons for the downfall of education in America. Otherwise, the debate becomes an exercise in assigning blame among teachers, parents, bureaucrats, rather than a search for a solution. A comparison of the educational philosophy of early America and the modern progressive methodology and content used in most schools today is helpful as a reference point, as a standard by which to understand and reform the present educational system. Early American education. Early education in America was unique. The norm was private education in the home, churches, and schools, with the Bible as the foundation for character development as well as intellectual insight. The Pilgrims and other colonists were greatly interested in education, but they saw it as a personal, family, and church responsibility. Communities sometimes offer formal education at the township level, but always under parental control and always biblically based. These early founders, knowing the importance of education, founded hundreds of private schools and colleges during the colonial period. Most of the colleges were started for the purposes of training men for the ministry. Educator Rosalie J. Slater gives this account of the success of our founders' educational efforts. At the time of the Declaration of Independence, the quality of education had enabled the colonies to achieve a degree of literacy from 70% to almost 100%. This was not education restricted to the few. Modern scholarship reports the prevalence of schooling and accessibility to all segments of the population. Moses Coit Tyler, historian of the American literature, indicates the colonists' familiarity with history, extensive legal learning, lucrative exposition of constitutional principles, showing indeed that somehow out into the American wilderness had been carried the very accent of cosmopolitan thought and speech. When the American state papers arrived in Europe, they were found to contain nearly every quality indicative of personal and national greatness. If we seek the resources of our nation's greatness, we will find none more central than the 150 years of instruction in Christian schools and the self-governed, principled study and reasoning undertaken in Christian homes. Noah Webster, the father of American education, made the development of Christian character the centerpiece of his educational philosophy. Because all education built upon the foundation of the Bible, children grew up knowing how to find guidance for all human endeavor through reasoning from its principles. The Bible was the political and economic textbook of the founders. The Reverend J. Wingate Thornton's Pulpit of the American Revolution notes that in 1777, the Continental Congress wrote directing the Committee of Commerce to import 20,000 copies of the Bible, the great political textbook of the Patriots. And we will continue more tomorrow.